Hello there. Happy New Year and happy holidays to everyone watching. How are you guys today? I hope you're doing well. Hopefully you're getting ready to ring in your new year, or maybe if you're watching this in 2021, I am speaking to you from the past. No, not really that far in the past. I'm bringing to you my top 10 miniatures of 2020. 2020 has been a heck of a year. It's been one of the most notable in my lifetime and in most of our lifetimes. And, it's had its ups and downs. It's everything from Tiger King to COVID to WAPs and flops and everything in between. We've had a lot of interesting stuff this year. But as far as my realm and the stuff that I cover, I'm going to be bringing you guys 10 of my favorite high points in that, my 10 favorite miniatures. So keep in mind, by the way, that this is really just the miniatures that I cover. There's a lot of other great minis out there that I don't cover as much. There's also a lot of great miniatures that I did cover that didn't quite make this list because it's tough choosing 10. And so with that, also, I'm going to begin it here in a moment. I also want to let you know I'm going to be linking the actual video reviews, unboxings, and stuff for all of this stuff down in the video description and also on Crabbok.com. So if you want to see any of this stuff in more detail, be sure to check out those links. With that, I'm going to open us up with some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention that I'm going to talk about today is terrain. Now, terrain is not specifically a miniature in the same sense of the word, and I get that, but this particular selection is actually two different terrain companies. I've got the trees here from Monster Fight Club. I absolutely love these trees. I really love Monster Fight Club's terrain. They actually sent me quite a bit to look at, and it's really, really impressive. Very, very easy too. And I think ease is one of those things that I have found as one of my top things with terrain. And they're beautiful. They're pre-painted. And speaking of pre-painted, we also have Legion Terrains AT-AT, or they're down to AT-AT over. I couldn't fit the whole thing in one shot, so you just have to take my word for it that it's absolutely awesome. You probably have seen some of my reviews of that terrain as well as a lot of the stuff showing up in my battle reports. But I really love some of the terrain that I've been sent this year, and these two are among the highest points. So definitely check them out. They're very approachable for all of you guys out there because, hey, it comes pre-painted. You just have to kind of set it down and go. And it's amazing. And so I love this stuff. I love how modular it is. I love, like, with the trees, how you can take the tops off or put them on. You can do a lot of stuff with that. With the and there's a lot of separate little pieces with the Legion Terrain stuff as well. Like with the extra little gun bits, or kind of making it spread out like close together, or whatever you want to do with it. Love the terrain, and it just makes setup and teardown a lot easier when it's all pre-painted and when it's all just like it's got the flat bottoms. You don't have to try and link pieces together or assemble everything. So I really like that. Next runner-up is going to be the Masters of the Universe from Fields of Eternia out of Archon Studios. These were both sent to me for their upcoming Kickstarter. That game hasn't actually launched yet, so I'm like, I haven't actually seen any gameplay of it yet. But the minis look really, really cool, and we've got He-Man and Skeletor both, so they each get an honorable mention. And I have been reluctant to paint them just yet. They look super, super cool, but I've just been trying to get all my Star Wars stuff done. I've been doing a lot of other painting. I'll get to these guys one of these days for sure, but they look pretty awesome as is. And the last runner-up is kind of all of the Clone Wars Armada squadrons, but particularly the ARC 170 I thought stood out as being a particularly detailed model. Like, these things are tiny, like smaller than a pea or a grain. They're about the size of, an unpopped corn kernel. So there's a lot of detail in something that's ultra, ultra tiny. It's amazing how they get that much detail in there. And by the way, all the minis you're going to see have, I pretty much have my own paint work on them for the most part. A lot of them do, not all of them. Look, I'm not the greatest painter at all, but I wanted to use my photographs as opposed to stock photographs. Just because I had them around and I wanted to do that. So that's kind of what we're going with. Also, I could get the same kind of background and kind of standardize the photos that way. All right, so with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump to number 10. Number 10 is going to be the Armada Clone Wars Munificent. This ship is one of the greatest ships to hit Armada. I was really, really blown away. And an interesting thing about this particular ship, this got so much detail. And it has really good paint apps and decals along along it as well. But there's a lot of detail underneath. There's a lot of detail all over the place with this particular ship. A lot of sculpting underneath and paint apps and all kinds of different places that really, you know, they could have done without, but it just looks great. The amount of sculpting detail on this ship is stupendous. Even like underneath those paneling, those gray panels out to the side, you can look in there, you can see all kinds of tubes and all kinds of extra pieces of definition that they could have skimped on, but they didn't. And this miniature really stands out as being a first-class miniature, and I absolutely love it. Another thing about this one too is it made me really want to take a closer look at the Separatists. I was going to be like all about the Republic until I saw this ship, and I'm like, wow, this is so pretty. I really like this. Was maybe my most anticipated ship of the Clone Wars, and it's really something. It's really nice. Number 9, Xwing's ETA 2 with the docking ring. Now, I recognize that this is kind of technically 2 ships in one, but they are both in the same expansion, and if you merge them together, it's the docking ring. It just happens to have the ETA 2 in there, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, yes, I'm allowed to cheat. It's my own list. I can put 2 in 1 here, no problem. You know what? I'm allowed to do it sometimes. I can selectively choose when I want to do it and when I don't want to do it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff about this one. The ETA 2 being a revolutionary kind of miniature that the docking ring itself, rather, that can take an ETA 2 or a V-Wing or a Delta 7, and it fits all of them in there. It's just brilliant. And even it's even future-proofed enough that some other ships might be able to fit in there as well. I love the way that they've done it. It's very, very cool. I also love that it's the first kind of theatrical mode play type of miniature that's come out for Xwing. That's like, it's not legal in any format really, but unless you just, or in any like tournament level kind of format, it's just casual only pretty much, and I love that. But of course the ETA 2 is its own separate ship. That also looks awesome. The paints match up between them. They look great together, and of course you can take them apart. And I love that whole, it goes in and it goes out. Like you can take it apart and then deploy it from there. And that was a big thing with Xwing 2nd Edition, that was one of the better parts, because I certainly have my pros and cons with kind of everything about the whole. First edition is now gone, and now we have 2nd Edition coming out. There was a lot of things I didn't like about that, but one of the things I loved about that is the improvement to the model quality and actually letting things dock in the model. Like we saw that with the Ghost last year. Was really, really cool. And here's another example of something physically docking into where it should be, which is just beautiful. I love the design of this whole sculpt, and I'm counting both pieces in one here because they're in the same expansion as well. So very, very cool. Number 8. From Marvel Crisis Protocol, it's Magneto. Magneto is a beautiful miniature with a really, really nice cape. He's got a great flow to it. It's a lot of theatrical flair. He's actually got a couple of other pieces that come with him. He's got a couple of debris pieces. I probably should have, and now that I'm going through it and I'm doing it all in one take here, I'm trying to do this all in one take, I'm like thinking to myself, boy, I really should have put the other pieces of debris because they kind of come with him. And that, well, you know what? Yeah, I probably should have. But yeah, he's got all kinds of debris on his base already. He's like, look, his base is awesome. He's got all this broken metal, and he's manipulating it all. His cape is flowing, looks beautiful. He's just got a great pose, and he's practically flying off the base. Just a beautiful, beautiful sculpt. Really like Magneto. Plus, I mean, we got the X-Men from Marvel Crisis Protocol. This was a good year for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Coming in at number 7. The TIE Brute. This thing had been expected for so long, and it didn't disappoint. It's just a beautiful, beautiful TIE, and it's huge. It's so much bigger than you thought it was going to be, because it was kind of like you thought it was going to be about the size of a TIE fighter, just a little bit wider, kind of like a TIE bomber. But no, it's like 4 times the size of a TIE fighter. It's just nonsense. It's huge, and but the mini looked really, really good, and you can kind of see. I mean, you can see in my other videos where I actually did the unboxing. You can see it in my hands. You can see how big it is. It's on a medium base for Xwing, but also what's nice about this is that moving part, right? That big cannon that you have right here literally swivels up and down, and then kind of locks into the forward position, and then locks into the straight backwards position, but it won't go like down. So it's got a 180 swivel, not a 360 swivel. But that was just like an extra detail that they didn't really need to do, but really helped put this miniature over the top. And I love the swivel for the TIE Brute, so it gives certainly bonus points for that. Number 6, We're jumping over to Legion with the Clan Ren Mandalorians. These guys were super awesome. They started doing flight stands with Legion miniatures this year, and I feel like they cheated a little bit to get as high up on this list as they did, because look, Mando helmets are kind of easy to do, right? Like, it's hard to get that one wrong. Maybe easy to do is a little bit condescending. I shouldn't say it like that. When you have to do a facial sculpts, it's a little easier to have your like slight imperfections kind of stand out more. But when you're doing when it's just straight up Mando Beskar armor, it's like it's going to be perfect. And sure enough, they didn't disappoint. They came out perfect. They're just awesome, and they got the flight stands, and they're kind of all over the place, and they paint up real easy. As far as I was concerned, I thought they were easy to paint. I enjoyed painting them, and they're very dynamic. They look awesome. And another thing, and granted, I'm saying miniature of the year. I have all of them out here because it's like a 7-way tie. Although one of them actually broke off its flight stand right before I set up this photo. So one of them is in sick call right now, seeing the medics, getting her backpack kind of repaired. But yeah, it's just, it's a 7-way tie. They're just all amazing. They're all fantastic looking. And especially, I love that Beskar duelist too. It's just a really, really cool pose. They're all really, really cool. So a 7-way tie with the Clan Ren Mandos, right? Moving up to number 5. Number 5. I said 7-way tie. It was making me think 6 was next, but this was actually number 6. So number 5 is going to be Thanos, the Mad Titan from Marvel Crisis Protocol. He's actually especially cool. He's Thanos, right? Like, we all know who Thanos is. He's more of a comic book version of Thanos. He came into the game with a whole lot of emphasis because he was the first epic boss that you could play together. You could do this cooperative type of play where everybody's playing against Thanos and he's like an ultra level, or you could just have him as a regular villain. But also Thanos was especially cool because he came with his own terrain piece. Like, his base doubles as a terrain piece, and you can put him in it, or you can have him kind of step out of it, and it has a separate little base insert that goes in there to take the empty spot, which was really, really cool. I loved that he's got this dynamic base where you can actually remove him from the base and have him walk around, or have him kind of start on his throne, which is cool. And I'm counting that as part of the mini because his full base is his whole throne. I have him kind of off of it right here so you can kind of see. And also he came with alternate head sculpts. You can have him kind of smiling or angry. And he also came with an alternate Infinity Gauntlet. You don't have, he might not have the full Infinity Gauntlet, or you can have him with the Infinity Gauntlet. A lot of people magnetized those. I didn't. He also came with a bunch of skulls that you can put all over the place. Just a lot of attention to detail. Honestly, most of the Marvel Crisis Protocol minis are fantastic, but this guy was one of my favorites. And he came out earlier in the year, along with a lot of the Black Order and all that other stuff. We got a lot of Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff this year, but Thanos was an especially high point, so he was super cool. Sticking with Atomic Mass Games and Marvel Crisis Protocol, we're jumping to another one of the X-Men, and admittedly not my finest painting job here, but probably one of my favorite. I think my favorite Marvel Crisis Protocol miniature of all time, and that's Wolverine. He was just amazing. I loved his pose. There's a lot of stuff people have done with him too. A lot of people have taken that epic rock, that superhero rock that are on almost all of their bases, and they took that one off and they just have him kind of leaning forward, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool different paint options that I've seen put in place for Wolverine, but I just love him. He was so much fun to get put together, and I was just really, 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 really happy. So the hype is elevating Wolverine much, much higher because he's one of my favorite Marvel characters, and I'm really happy with what he's going to also do for the game, and just being able to have Wolverine on the table is such an exciting factor to me, and I just thought his mini was really, really cool. I'm doing a lot of really reallys in this. My vocabulary is better than this, I promise you. I just kind of get caught up in the hype and then start talking like kind of a 14-year-old again. Nothing against 14-year-olds, that's really, really cool. All right, number 3, we're getting another really good stuff now. The really, really good stuff. How many times am I going to say really, really? Number 3, superfluously good. What? I'm just talking nonsense. The ARC Troopers for Star Wars Legion. I loved the ARC Troopers. They were some of my favorite sculpts. They also had the flight stands. The flight stands I didn't use for the ARC Troopers just because I wanted them all on the ground. I found it was easier to store them, and sure enough, they all worked without the flight stance. I had to kind of lean some of them a little bit of ways, and like one of them I had to file down the the tip of the toes to kind of just make them kind of rest on the base a little bit easier. But I really loved these models. I love the changeover that Legion has gone through over the past maybe 14 months or so, transitioning from everything to the soft plastic to the hard plastic. It's led for some really great miniatures. These were, for a lot of people, the first hard plastic clones that they got, because the Phase 1 clones were good, but they weren't as good as the Phase 2 clones, because that's when they really upped the quality in that hard plastic for the clones. If you don't remember, when the core set came out and all the Phase 1 clones, those were still done in soft plastic. The droids were in hard plastic, however, but the Phase 1 clones were still in soft plastic. So once we got to the Phase 2 clones, then that's when they were all in hard plastic. But those were out of print for so long that a lot of people never got their Phase 2 clones. So a lot of people, these were their first kind of soiree into hard plastic clones, and they did not disappoint. They were just magnificent with very dynamic poses and just really, really fun to paint up. So great troopers, the ARC Troopers at number 3. And number 2, my favorite nunchuck-wielding Sith Lord, it's Darth Maul. Now, obviously, this is a little bit of a conversion. I equipped him with both double-bladed sabers, cut them both in half, and put a jewelry chain in between to give him lightsaber nunchucks. But Darth Maul is a magnificent sculpt. They give you a lot of options with him, too. You can have that front arm kind of just, using the Force, or kind of no lightsaber, or you can have the front arm with a double-bladed lightsaber. You can have the back arm with no lightsaber, or with a double-bladed lightsaber. Or you could do both arms with no lightsabers, or both arms with a double-bladed lightsaber. Tons of fun with trying to figure out how you wanted to build them. And I, of course, had to go with none of those options and ended up doing them. I actually did build them with 2 double-bladed sabers. But, I had been going back, I'd been advocating to get Darth Maul into this game for a while. Granted, I knew he was coming anyway. Everybody who's popular in the Clone Wars and in the prequels and all that stuff is going to make their way into this game at some point. I'm sure of it. But I was really pushing to have Darth Maul sooner rather than later, and sure enough, we got him in 2020, which is super exciting. And he's awesome. He's awesome. I love the sculpt. I love it so much. And there was other lightsaber nunchuck Darth Mauls out there. I've done some reviews for Order 66 designs, and that's awesome too. You should definitely check them out. But this Maul was really nice, and I do like my custom because the chain actually wiggles because it's a real chain. So when you're playing it, it kind of swivels back and forth. So it's a fun one. Which brings us to number 1. What are your guesses? Let me know down in the comments section if you've guessed it already without cheating. I'd love to hear from you guys. Or also let me know after this video if there's something that you think I should have had on the top 10 that didn't quite make it. I'd love to hear that as well. All right. Number 1 is the Starhawk for Star Wars Armada. This is more than just a sculpt. This was everything. This was a big deal, and it's beautiful and it's big. It's one of my favorite expansions of all time for Star Wars Armada for so many reasons. First off, let's talk about the sculpt. It's beautiful. It's large and incredibly detailed. There's so much paneling over here, and this one I'm actually showing 2 because I don't really like a lot of my blue Rebel ships, but this one is a special one, and I really liked the way that my custom painted Starhawk came out. So I'm showing both of them. Plus, it lets me show the front and the back, and it's such a huge mini. It's hard to get in one shot, but I wanted to get a couple different angles all in one shot. So that's kind of why I'm going with this. But it was also really fun to repaint. But as somebody who read the Aftermath books, I really had mixed kind of reviews of that book trilogy, but one of the high points was the Battle of Jakku, which did feature the Starhawk, and I really enjoyed the way it was written. I began to really like the Starhawk. It's one of the first ships I grew to really like based on a book, and and before having ever seen it, before really knowing even what it looked like. I thought that whole thing was really, really cool. By the way, as I'm talking, doesn't this kind of look like one of those micro USB ports? All right, I almost wonder if I should take my Starhawk and see if I can charge it. I don't know what would happen. Maybe a freaking giant tractor beam would come out of the front if I did that. So maybe it's a good idea if I don't try to charge my Starhawk, because I'm pretty sure it's just plastic. But what if there's more? But the other thing that was amazing is that Fantasy Flight was allowed and given like this honor of being the first to produce the first canon image of a Starhawk, which was amazing. Now, this was big for a lot of reasons. First off, Armada players got like a threat to, or Rebel players got a threat to kind of go up against the Super Star Destroyer. But also, how many people were really interested in ships and fleets and this ship in general that weren't even aware of Star Wars Armada. This kind of put Armada on the map for them. This was a lot of people's first, not just first kind of introduction to Star Wars Armada, but to tabletop miniatures games as a whole. There's a lot of Star Wars fans who are like, oh, is it coming out for a tabletop minis game? Maybe I should take a look at that. So I feel like this has a very special place of honor for that purpose as well. And for that's kind of what really edged it out, because otherwise Darth Maul would have been number one. But the Starhawk was just so many things. It was so much more than just a mini that I had to give it the number one spot. Plus, I mean, it's ridiculously huge, and really big miniatures usually tends to be among the top anyway. And so this one took the cake for 2020. All right, guys, let me know what you think of my list. Let me know what you think of the top 10. Be sure to check links in the description from where you can find some more reviews of each of these items that I talked about, and let me know what should have been on this list. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Big thanks to my patrons as well. You guys are absolutely amazing. I could not do this without you. If you're interested in becoming a patron or supporting the channel either through merchandise or the Discord, hopping in there and becoming part of the community, check the links in the description below. I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, and as always, have a great day.